Good morning, everybody. It's Carpo here, and question I have for the day is, are we really better off knowing the truth? Um, and generally, I would say yes, of course. You know, people want to know what's really going on in the world. People want to feel like they have a grasp on what's happening around them, and I think that's just human nature, you know. But it's funny with today's society when we look back on, say, the 50s, and I think about like my mother's generation and the generation before her especially. They were so stuck on this American way of life, this white picket fence idea, and when we look back on them, our generation tends to hold a little bit of contempt for the ignorance, although it wasn't their fault. In other words, while we were embracing automobiles and plastics and all these wonderful new things, how were we to know that we were going to destroy ourselves with them? So, my generation was the one that really started recycling and trying to make an impact, as little as it may be. Overall, it's probably a larger impact than we realize, but, you know, the chlorofluorocarbons and, you know, the CFCs in the atmosphere, we, you know, stopped using them and tried to make a difference. So I hear a lot of people from my generation holding contempt for those from their parents and the parents of their parents, and I don't really put the blame on them, but people have said, well, why didn't they ask to know the truth? You know, why didn't they demand the truth? Well, they did. I mean, the 60s were a revolutionary time, and you know, Vietnam opened people's eyes to the injustice and the irrational side of war, as if there was a rational side of war. But that's a different story altogether. War is just, you know, part of human nature. I don't think it's something that we'll ever get past. I hope I'm wrong, because I'd like to see us get past it. But as far as the truth, you know, it seems like what's happening with this flood of information on the internet is that the truth has become very subjective, and it's very interpreted by the individual and the particular things they want to seek out. In other words, let's say in the 60s and 70s, you'd watch the news, go to work the next day, talk about what you saw on the news, or perhaps something that's going on. And there was maybe a handful of issues to deal with, which gave people the time to really think those issues through. Today, we're inundated with an overwhelming amount of information, some of it true, some of it not. And the scariest information to me is the information that is based on truth, but is completely false in so many other regards. And it's hard for people to know where they should be looking or putting their energy. And the powers that be love this, because as long as people are not just divided but confused, people won't know how to approach any real subjects. We have folks in, you know, folks who are complaining about things on the other side of the world that they don't even know for sure if they exist, but won't act in their local community to better it, or even in their own family. And it's scary because we want to be able to work as a team, you know, but that only goes so far. It's kind of like the chemtrail issue. When I recently talked a little bit more about that still, and every time I open my mouth on that and try to voice a little bit of what I think is rational, everyone tells me to do my research. But I can't express how much research I've really done into the different patterns in my own sky, and what I've come to is a conclusion here that there are spraying, and yes, there are chemtrails, and they have been doing geoengineering. But I'm not trying to disprove that they've done that. I'm trying to disprove that every single trail that's persistent in the sky is a chemical, because of the fact that I hear people say they keep their animals in, they keep their kids in if it's a spray day. So that concerns me. Concerns me because it means that people aren't just aware of a subject, but they are considering every angle as part of that. And in other words, this is a very well-known situation with conspiracy theories. Whenever there's a conspiracy within government, even true ones, all of a sudden everyone becomes involved. Every single person, every politician, down to you know, the hairdresser. Everybody has to be involved in this giant thing, this giant cover-up. And loose lips are prevalent. You know, whenever an injustice comes out, somebody will speak up on it. But once in a while, one person will speak up on something that, you know, and claim to have evidence for it, and then people quote that person and cite that person's evidence, and it becomes just so hard to know, not just if the evidence is right, not just if the person is legitimate, but if the person maybe believes what he's saying but doesn't really have any evidence for it. So in the long run, I guess we all have to kind of embrace our own realities and look at each situation from a distance, because it's easy to get wrapped up when you're talking with a bunch of people and have them back you up and confirm you and confirm you. I like it when I'm questioned, because it helps me to ask myself, okay, if a person disagrees with this, then that means that I may want to reconsider this idea. Even some of the ideas that everyone agrees with each other on, I think we need to reconsider. Because it's never about agreement. It's never about being right. I think one of the most divine things is to err, to be wrong, and to be able to admit it. And that's, I guess, why I used chemtrails as an example, because 2 years ago I was a chemtrail believer, and I did all the research in to try to prove to myself they existed. And the more I looked, the more I realized that I was just telling myself what I wanted to hear. I wanted to think that my trails were chemtrails because I'd heard other people talk about theirs, and you know, after watching it for a while I realized that's not true in my area. But for me to go and say then that means no chemtrails exist would be totally erroneous on my part. So I don't know what's going on in Colorado, in the East Coast, in other countries. All I can do is speak for my area, and I think we could take that approach to all these subjects and say, you know, you can speculate all you want, but consider your part of it, your area. You know, if you can't see something from your door, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But just because people are telling you they see it from their door doesn't mean it does exist. And so, yeah, our parents may have been to blame for some of the shortcomings of society today, but ultimately it's on our plate now, and we're the ones who have to wade through it and stick our necks out and try to find out which issues are the most important. And I don't really know what those are. I think personal approach to a personal happiness is essential, but it's not the be-all end-all of life. It's a balance between satisfaction and service and tolerance and acceptance and all those things. You know, it's just to be, just to exist and be yourself, but to use your head, because consciousness is a gift, and we seem to be squandering it. Peace.